So recently, Star Wars turned 30. Kind of crazy to think about because that feels like a really long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, huh? But I thought I would do a little vlog tribute to Star Wars because everyone does, or at least should, have special memories of it, of, you know, when you first experienced the magic, which is that series. I can kind of imagine my parents when I was old enough. I don't know what brought it on, but I kind of imagine them both turning to each other like, I think she's ready. You do? She's ready. Okay. And then they showed me Star Wars. I didn't know anything about it when I was very little. I don't even know how little when I first saw it, but I thought it was amazing and loved every minute of it. I loved all the creatures and I loved the story, and at the end of Return of the Jedi, when Luke is getting pwned by the Emperor and he's having like lightning go up and down his body and he's screaming, like, that was a pretty disturbing scene to me, and Darth Vader standing there like torn, like, son, master, that was intense for my little mind. And I heard all the stories about my mom seeing it in theaters, and she was the only one with the group she was with that hadn't seen Empire Strikes Back before. So when the big reveal showed up, you know, I am your father, she was the only one in the theater that was like, and it was really loud and everyone laughed at her. But it was this kind of neat moment where I got to share something with my parents, that this was something that they really loved and they had cherished, you know, from their memories of childhood or, you know, whenever they saw it. And they got to share it with me, and so that was really special. And then I had a friend who was in my class who had tons of old Star Wars toys. Like, he brought them in every time we had show and tell, and he would explain who the character was and what the model, and there was all the old school toys that are probably worth billions of dollars. So Dan, did you keep those? Did you give them away on a garage sale? Because that would be sad. But I remember going over to his house, and we would, you know, kind of play with the toys, but not really because they're collector's items. And I remember him showing me Boba Fett, and when I saw him, I was like, who is this character? And, you know, Dan looked at me like, oh, shock and horror, she doesn't know who Boba Fett is. Like, didn't you watch the movies? And I was like, yeah, I don't remember this guy. And so, you know, then of course it was explained to me that even though Boba Fett, like, has all of maybe 3 minutes total movie time and then just gets owned at the end, granted, when you read the books, he crawls out and he's fine, he's a badass, but I didn't know any of that when I was watching the movie. I had no idea who he was. I didn't remember his name because it only gets said like once by hand, who's like blind and dizzy. So that didn't really stick out to me, but then I learned the cult of Boba Fett and how he's really amazing and all this. And so later on, I remember being at camp, and a whole bunch of boys were kind of gathered together, and we were on this really long bus trip, and they were just killing time, and they were all telling each other Star Wars trivia and asking each other all these, you know, Star Wars questions. And at first I was like, this is really great, they love Star Wars, I love Star Wars, I can go hang out and kill time with them. And it started out with some basic questions, you know, like what was the creature that Han's riding on the planet Hoth? Oh, it was a tauntaun, yay, I got one. And then they started talking about all these really technical questions, like how many docking bays are in the Death Star, and I was like, what? Do you guys count these in the movies? Oh no, we read the books. And I was like, books? There's books to be read? I had no idea. When I was sick, I would always watch the Endor movies, and then when I was older, like in high school, I almost always watched the whole Star Wars trilogy during finals, because I would come home early after school and then just like pop one in, and I wouldn't always finish one per evening, so it would take me maybe like the whole week to finish all 3, but I would just like study and have it on in the background because it was comforting and familiar and I loved it, and so it made studying not horrible because I felt happy the whole time because I was watching Star Wars. But just in general, I think everyone should have a little history with Star Wars. I mean, when I meet people who haven't seen it, and there are more that exist in that category than I've ever would have imagined possible. My first thought is, didn't your parents love you? That's so sad that they didn't love you enough to share, you know, the Star Wars experience with you. I'm sorry. But that's my first impression of people who haven't seen it. I just figure you have terrible parents. So I wanted to just say, happy birthday, Star Wars. You are a big part of my life. Mwah.